Now we have Dr. Phil Allen. Let's give him a hand. He's a great guy.
Well, I'm really grateful to be here and to be part of this. And that song leading into this was perfect, Come As You Are, because our theme for the conference as a whole is real life, real hope. And so I just decided that I want to be very real with you right out of the gate. There are people who are experts in marriage and in child raising and in family, and I ain't it. I am not remotely an expert. To let you know a little bit about me, I've been married 25 years this summer. That's more a testament to my wife than it is to me. We have a 16-year-old daughter, and we are well into the phase of caring for aging parents. And if all of those experiences have taught me anything, is that I am anything but an expert in any of it. For me, I fumble through my roles. I fumble through my role as a husband, I fumble through my role as a father, and I fumble through my role as an adult son. And I think I get some right, and the reality is I get a lot wrong. And so the best that I can do for you today is I want to offer you a thought from a fellow fumbler. But I'd like you very much to keep it in that perspective. You're not hearing from an expert. You're not hearing from somebody who has it together. You're not hearing from somebody who has the answers. I have sort of one thought that I want to give you to get the ball rolling, but it's a thought from a fellow fumbler. In fact, to be really honest with you, I went through a phase of reading marriage books and parenting books and family books, and I don't do that anymore. And the reason I don't do that anymore is for me. Now, there's nothing wrong with the material in the books. It's just that for me, the books made me feel bad. Because they always felt like these people know something I don't. They're able to do something I'm not. You know, they've got 27 kids and they're all surgeons or missionary surgeons. and then there's me who struggles to get through the day without making a huge mistake. And part of my struggle with that is that's just not my experience of how real life works. My experience of how real life works is there are potholes in these roads. And there are a lot of potholes in the roads. And unfortunately, I seem to hit a lot of the potholes in the roads. The real life is messy. And that's one of the things that I have a feeling we should try to keep in mind as we're thinking about our marriages and we're thinking about what it means to be parents. We're thinking about what it means then to care for our parents as they go into their elderly years. You have to expect it to be messy. You have to expect potholes. Now, last Sunday, my wife and I encountered real life. We encountered a pothole in our relationship. And the real life pothole that we encountered last Sunday looks like this. Michigan played Wisconsin, for those of you who don't know, for the Big Ten championship in basketball. And I admit that on the scale of family issues, that looks like a small thing, you know, but it's Saturday morning. And I want to keep it a little bit light, but on the other side of it, though, you have to realize three things to make this the pothole that it is. In terms of college sports, I bleed maize and blue. I grew up in Wisconsin, but my great-grandparents, my grandparents, and my parents all went to the University of Michigan. Growing up, that's all we ever watched. In fact, I've told lots of you this, but I literally remember the day that I figured out that everyone in the area was not a Wolverines fan. I just thought they were the local team. I thought if you watch sports, of course that's what you watch. So I am a lifelong, undying Wolverines fan. Now my wife, on the other hand, Jeannie, If you just would look at her at some point today, she sees 6A, don't do that. She's got her Wisconsin shirt on. Because Jean is a UW fan, and for all the right reasons. She grew up here. I admit, they're a great team. Everything I read about them, they seem to be good individual human beings. They have a good coach. In fact, Jean, and we got to laughing about this, but on one of the teams years ago, one of their first really good teams, Jean babysat one of those guys. Now, we're a little older than it being this team. That was many years ago. But Jean babysat one of those guys. So, of course she's a Badger fan. And I forgive her for that. but it created a tension. And part of the reason it created a tension is the third thing you got to know about us. We're both really competitive people. And we probably should have taken a cue from that. We were friends in college before we started dating. We would go play checkers in the student union, and we would get mad at each other over the checkers game. We probably should have taken a cue from that and understood there's a pothole there. It emerged in our marriage, though, for the first time in a way that looked like this. Nintendo football. Now, for those of you who are too young to know, that is not a bad picture of Nintendo football. That's how that looked. That is the graphics that it had. And Jean and I would play that early on in our marriage, and we got so mad at each other that we had to come up with an agreement that we would not play that game ever again. And we haven't, and in fact, to this day, we will only play games that are cooperative, where we're on the same team, where we're working together. Because this is a huge pothole for us. And it's a light pothole, I get that, but the reality is, for a while in our marriage, we would very literally get mad at each other over checkers, over Nintendo football. And if it ever came down, at that point it wasn't as much of an issue, but if it ever came down that Wisconsin was playing Michigan for the whole deal, that would have been a real problem. Now, it's fun. It's funny. But that, though, is real life. Real life is stuff happens. And you disagree over stuff, and there are things you see differently, and sometimes it's huge things, it's huge mistakes. Sometimes it's tiny things and tiny mistakes. But the question is, what is real hope for real life? What's real hope for relationships that are between two people who have faults, who are short-sighted, who have opinions, who don't handle everything right? What is real hope for real life? And I want to just give you again one simple but hard thought from a fellow phone book. And real hope for real life is love mercy. 2 words. If you want to genuinely find real hope in whatever the relationship is, and we can talk about it in terms of marriage, parent-child, child-parent, or just friendships. If you want to find the core of real hope in your marriage, learn to fall in love with mercy. Notice, it's interesting back in Micah. He doesn't say be merciful. He says love mercy. It's literally this idea of develop a love affair with mercy to find hope in your relationships. But how on earth do I do that? How do I find hope? How do I love mercy? And first, let's just take a look at what mercy is. In Hebrews, it's the word chesed. I'm not going to say that again because there's something that I can't pronounce in it. But that's the Hebrew word. And it carries with it the idea of kindness. Sometimes we translate it kindness, but it's kindness with a focus. And mercy is specifically kindness to someone who doesn't deserve that kindness. It's easy to be kind when the other person's being kind. It's easy to be kind when you agree.
It's easy to be kind when you love the same stuff, when you do the same stuff. It's easy to be kind when the other person is doing exactly what they should do. We wouldn't need to do conferences like this if that was the day in, day out, all the time experience of relationships. If everything always went well, there'd be nothing to think about. This comes into play when there's tension. It comes into play when there are potholes. And so if you put it in terms of a marriage or your relationship with your kids or your relationship with your friends, this comes into play when the other person has blown it. When they've done something wrong. They've said something wrong, they've handled it wrong. It comes into play when you've done something wrong. It comes into play when there's a game on and you're rooting for different teams and you're both very competitive. This comes into play there. Because this is supposed to be an underlying idea that I have, is this willingness to extend kindness regardless of what? Well, regardless of whatever. Because it's to a person who doesn't deserve it. So that's what mercy is. Now, how, though, do we fall in love with mercy? Or where does real hope, how does this tie into real hope? Real hope begins with mercy received. Real hope begins with mercy received. Loving mercy starts with a hard look at myself. That's a kind of a radical idea. Because staying real here, I absolutely need mercy. Because I'm a really messed up human being. I do things I shouldn't do. I avoid things I should do. I say things I shouldn't say. And often I don't say the things I should say. I'm not, at heart, sometimes a real great guy. And I need mercy. And in the first instance, of course, I need mercy from God. That really, that's the whole gospel. All I deserve from God is I deserve His anger. I deserve Him to punish me. But I need Him to extend kindness where I don't deserve it. That's the gospel. But the reality is I need mercy from Jean too. Because in the context of our relationship, I don't always handle it right. I don't always handle it well. I'm not always kind and calm and gentle and supportive. I blow it in big ways. I blow it in small ways. And imagine how a disagreement would look. Picture a disagreement in your marriage or with your kids, with your older parents, whatever it is. Imagine how a disagreement would look if I intentionally refocused on my fault, not Jean's fault. Because if you stop and you think about it, when you get in the spot where mercy's needed, when you get in the spot where you need to be the one extending mercy, where's your first focus? Well, your first focus is on the fault of the other person. What they did, what they said, how they hurt you, how they mishandled it. That's our first focus. But see, falling in love with mercy involves an intentional refocus. That focus is going to be there because that's just us as fallen human beings. And this honestly doesn't matter whether you're 9 years old, or you're 19 years old, or you're 69 years old, or you're 99 years old. Our first focus is on the fault of the other person. And I guarantee you, if you go back to the last argument, the last struggle, the last conflict you had, and you can run through it honestly in your mind, I'm willing to bet that you can zero in on how zeroed in you were on what the other person did wrong, on what the other person said wrong. And see, the problem is that's not mercy. That's, in fact, exactly the opposite of mercy. And so falling in love with mercy starts with this intentional refocus on myself, this intentional refocus on my fault. and what's going on inside me. C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite quotes, and we don't use a lot of the words this way anymore, but C.S. Lewis said, the Christian's nostril, right, so your nose, should always be attuned or in touch with the inner cesspool. Boy, that feels good, doesn't it? But that's the reality of us, isn't it? I mean, isn't that real life? That there is junk that goes on inside of me that's just ugly. And genuinely falling in love with mercy means, first instance, I refocus on my need for mercy. Real hope starts with mercy received, but there's another step. Real hope then blooms with mercy given. Real hope starts with mercy received, but real hope blooms with mercy given. And what I want you to realize about this, mercy is not something that we can just take. Spiritually, God doesn't put us in a position where we're always just receiving. He puts us in a position where we give what we receive. And real hope needs to have mercy received, but it also needs, for me, and this is the way I want you to think about it, it needs me to make the decision to extend mercy. Extending mercy is not an emotional reaction. In fact, I'm willing to sort of guarantee you something because of us as fallen human beings. And again, maybe this is just because I'm so screwed up. I almost never feel like extending mercy. When I need to extend mercy, I've been affronted. I've been hurt. I've been betrayed. When that happens, I don't want to extend mercy. I have to decide to extend mercy. Now, part of the question we'd ask is, why would I decide to extend mercy? And part of the answer is because I realize I need it too. See, if I've refocused on myself, what happens is it creates a humility in me, and that humility in me is willing to extend mercy to you because I'm aware of how deeply I need it. And so real hope starts with mercy received. It blooms then with mercy extended. It's this idea that in the midst of struggle, in the midst of conflict, in the midst of failure, I will be kind. I will be kind. That's a tough decision. You know, when I was preparing this morning, it was such a difficult balance because I wanted to keep it kind of light because I know it's the first thing in the morning, but at the same time I wanted to deal with real life and real hope, and how does that happen? And this is how that happens. Now, back to our pothole. We all know what happened. Yes! Michigan 71, Wisconsin 56. It's glorious! If I could make wallpaper of that, I would. That's why I need mercy. I need mercy because I'm screwed up. I gloat. I rub it in. Jean did something miraculous. Now I'm going to also tell you she messed it up this morning. But Jean did something miraculous on Sunday. And that's that she genuinely, and it was genuine, rejoiced with me that Michigan won, even though Wisconsin lost. And it was genuine. And I honestly, I didn't talk to her about that. I told her I'm going to use her as an example, because I always do. But I didn't talk to her about that. And that really stuns me. It does. Her ability to do that stuns me. Because, to be bluntly honest with you, had the score been flipped, I would have been sort of nice but it wouldn't have been genuine. I would have been upset. I would be mad. I'd be mad today. I would not be using that as an example. I sure wouldn't have a slide up of it, and it wouldn't be hung on my wall in our bedroom at home. But she made the decision to rejoice with me. That was mercy. In the face of loss, in the face of what she wanted to happen, not happen, she rejoiced with me in my joy. Because see, also in that idea, that Hebrew word, it's an amazing word, and if I didn't think I'd put you to sleep, I'd love to go into more of it. But there's the idea in that Hebrew word of faithfulness as well. It's a loyal kindness. That notion in Hebrew, mercy, is a loyal kindness, the idea of faithfulness. And you know, when you think of faithfulness in marriage, when I think of faithfulness in marriage, I often think of not committing adultery. Right? That's faithfulness. That's true. It's just that's too narrow. Because a big part of faithfulness is extending kindness into your partner's fallenness. A big part of faithfulness is extending kindness into your partner's fallenness. Now, just to show you that Jean isn't perfect, though. She rejoiced with me. But then this morning, we're in a pool together for the brackets, the NCAA brackets. I didn't have a chance to check it because I was faithfully preparing for this. And I was praying, and I was just, immersed in a study of Micah, and, that's what I was doing. Jean was checking the brackets. And she said, well, I'm not doing that well, but at least I'm beating you. And she undoubtedly will. Why do I bring that up? I want to make fun of her. I got That's the only reason I had that in. Real life, though, is real people. It's real weaknesses, it's real failures, it's real positives. That's going to be a significant part of the nature of your relationship. The nature of your marriage, the nature of your relationship with your kids, with your parents, with your friends. Real hope is really just mercy. It's mercy received, and it's mercy extended. Let's pray. Father, I'm grateful that you love us and that you give us mercy. I'm grateful that you care, that you don't treat me the way I deserve. Because if you did, I wouldn't have any kind of relationship with you whatsoever. Lord, the foundation of our relationship with you is mercy, because you are merciful. And the foundation of our relationship with others should reflect that we also should be merciful. So would you help us to be humble enough to take a look inside and see that we need mercy, and then would you help us to be courageous enough to decide to give mercy, whether we feel like it or not. In Jesus' name.